so let's get into tonight's show. As you guys have heard, a whopping 200% salary increase has been granted to parliamentarians. So that's triple their original pay. And this has led to public outcry on social media, on the streets, basically everywhere you go. People are talking about this topic. So was this increase the right move? I'm going to talk about it. You know, we talk business on the show, we talk numbers on the show, but I also want to look a little bit at the politics of it because we're about a year and a half away from the next general election. And my two guests this evening, I think, can shed some light on both of these elements, both of these aspects. So I have with us political affairs commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang and chartered accountant Dennis Chung. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Kalila.
How you doing,
I'm
Kevin?
good.
Hi, Dennis. What's up?
Yeah, man.
Great to see you guys. Okay, let me take this comment off. Producer, handle that, please. All right, cool. Yes, so first of all, let me hear both of your perspectives on this. Kevin, starting with you. Was this a good move or not?
The theory was good, but the execution was terrible. You know, Leek, when you said that the quality of a government depends on the quality of the people in the government, he was a strong proponent of paying people more to get better quality people. His argument was that the private sector competes with the public sector for talent, and if the payment is way below the public sector, way below the private sector, you won't get good talent in government. However, the government blew it in terms of execution. As I said, the theory is logical, but first of all, the 400% increase, and is it when you think about these things, I supported this publicly. When you start thinking and you talk to people, why 200%? Why not start with like even 100% and go up from there? Any kind of business you're in, or any time things go up 200%, it shocks people, you know? And we know Jamaicans have a love-hate relationship with politicians. We elect them every 5 years. We elect them to govern us freely, but when they get in there, we cost them, even though we have chosen them. But apart from the 200%, the communication was atrocious. We have Andrew Holness now coming with all these job descriptions and KPIs and ethics stuff after this was announced. This clearly should have been announced with the increases. We're going to increase, but here are the things we're going to do. Also, one of the biggest blunders was there's no a pie chart showing the public sector increases, the percentage for each category, from health, for education, for security, you know, breakdown. And then you show the political sector, which is like 1.7% or something of the entire pie. So the public didn't get the perspective it should have. Also, there's no single document showing all the increases for the prominent people in that area. You have the prime minister, yes, for the political sphere, but the chief doctors, principals, they have gotten
the justices in the judiciary.
Exactly, chief justice. They've all gotten big increases also. But there's no document you can go to refer all these things together. The logical thing is do a document with that, right? And then do a TikTok video off of that. Because many people don't read, but the TikTok video.
So you're basically saying that this is largely a communication issue, but you have no problem with the increases themselves.
No, I 100% would have been good. As I say, when you talk to people, the anger is really bad out there, right? And you know, it's true. Why 200% off the bat? Why not 100% now? And then say in 3 years, if we see the improvement, another 50%, right?
Okay. Well, before we continue, let me bring Dennis in. Before we continue, let me bring Dennis in because I want to hear his initial thoughts as well. So Kevin says a communications issue, but the increases no problem. What do you say?
Oh, I agree 100% with Kevin.
Wow.
I have no issue with even the 200%. But the execution, I mean, if you want a lesson in not how to do something in terms of communication, this is it. I just think that it was handled very poorly. The fact of the matter is that I've always maintained that we need to pay our politicians more. It is very difficult to hold people who are running large organizations, which what ministers and MPs are doing, to account if they don't feel comfortable and you don't make them comfortable, right? So for me, the percentage increase, even the salary levels they get, it is not an issue. But if I'm going to pay you $20 million a year, I want $30 million worth of value from that, right? Um, because we're paying you 5 million before and we're getting 2 million of value. And we're saying to you now, okay, fine, we will up it and we will give you the money that you want. But make sure you deliver. I don't want to hear about disorder on the roads. I want communities to be quiet, right? I want the environment to be crime free. I want illegal vending gone. I want a better way of life, better public transportation system. So there's no argument that the politicians have now. We're paying you. So deliver what you need to deliver. That is where the conversation needs to go. Because the truth is that if you pay a man $100 million a year and he delivers $150 million worth of value, he's cheaper than the man that he pays 5 million a year and he delivers $2 million worth of value. So I think that the percentage increases and all of this we're focusing on is really a distraction from what we should be demanding from them. But
No,
I agree with Kevin,
I'm very
the
surprised,
execution.
Dennis, to hear both you and Kevin saying you guys are cool with the 200% increase.
No, no,
In light,
Kalila.
hold on. In light of what we see as the comparables, not just to other countries, but also to GDP. So let me share this with you. I saw this it was actually on Hugh Graham's page, and he's a PMP. I don't know where exactly what the original source of this document was, but this is comparing not only prime ministers or leaders' salaries in these 5 countries, but also to GDP per capita. GDP per capita, loosely speaking, is the average income of each person in the country. So in the Bahamas, average person earns about $27,000. The PM earns $86,000. This is in US dollars. So the PM earns about 3 times what the average person earns. In Trinidad, the average person earns $16,000. The PM earns 86, so the PM earns 5 times what the average person earns. In the UK, the average person earns $46,000. The PM, I'm surprised the PM of the UK salary is so low, $200,000. So the PM in the UK is earning about 4 times the average person. In the USA, the average income is about 70,000. The president, I assume they meant here, earns about 400,000, so about 5 times. And then in Jamaica, even before the increases, you have the average person earning just 5,000, and then the PM earning 60,000, which is 11 times what the average person earns. And then after the increases, that moves to 32 times what the average person earns. So how is this justifiable, relatively speaking, based on the size of our economy? Kevin, I'll actually, Dennis, you first, because you're the numbers person.
Yeah, well, I mean, that points to the real issue that we have. The real issue that we have in this country is productivity. And, when we talk about the public sector workers, I've always maintained that public sector workers and the general population is going to get poorer and poorer because we have not dealt with what the 2013 IMF agreement said we need to deal with as critical for improving the welfare of people, which is labor market reform. We take a short-sighted approach to it. So we will always have that disparity because we are impoverishing the persons at the lower end of the scale more and more in real terms because we fail to adopt the fiscal policies that is going to drive earnings and productivity, right? I mean, and we can't use that comparison to say that we should not pay the politicians what we expect them to deliver. Now, the way I read that table, Kalila, is that, okay, I'm going to pay you that. No, I want the average person to make more than the person in the Bahamas. That is how I read it. I am saying to them, okay, now that I'm paying you that, this is a benchmark for me. This is a part of the accountability. We want people to be making what people in the Bahamas are making. And that's how I would look at it.
And then some. So that means our average income would have to, how much people in the Bahamas making again? Let me look back at the number.
27,000 average.
27, GDP. And we're at 5, which means that we now have to quintuple what the average person in Jamaica
Yeah,
makes.
yeah. So the deal is, Kalila, if you are going to say you're going to pay yourself
More
more
than that.
and right, then deliver and deliver to me an average earnings that is up there.
Kevin,
Well, what Dennis says makes sense. I mean, it's logical. But, you know, the Prime Minister is the CEO of Jamaica. There's no question that the most important job in the country is the Prime Minister's. As Lee Kuan Yew said, the Prime Minister and the ministers, they will determine the level of your GDP. If they make good decisions, your GDP goes up. Bad decisions, they go down. So if you want to get a prime minister very low with low pay, keep him there and get people who are going to come in out of service. Yeah, if a CEO in the private sector in Jamaica makes 200,000 minimum of a big company, right? You are going to say, I'm going to pay 60,000 for a job that's way more important. Where's the logic in that? So, but as I said, I come back to the point that the theory, I think most people will agree that our politicians have been underpaid. I don't know if you have seen the Bobby Pickers Gill video going around. When he said that, he had a very interesting quote. He said, if you and I leave Parliament and we don't have anything to show for it, we can't put two and two together. People are going to say we're fool. We can't put two and two together, then say we're thief. And he said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. When you give people power, and the little pay, they are going to use that power to increase their income to a comfortable level. So you have to give them a comfortable level. There's no excuse to steal. That is just logic. But I come back to the point that the 200% was shocking to people. I think if they're going
naturally,
to 100, huh?
naturally, it's going to be shocking. And not just that, but it's also retroactive. So I heard wasn't it Oral Tracy, sports commentator? He has a video that's going around on TikTok as well, making a very interesting point about the retroactive portion, saying that if your justification for this increase is that you want to attract better and brighter and smarter politicians who can do the job and get things done, then why are you paying the current crop that new salary now? Because if you're saying that is your justification, then you're saying the current crop is not the crop of politicians that you want, who are the best caliber to run the country. So why are you paying them this now and even retroactively when ideally it should come into effect maybe 2025 when the next election is due?
But it clearly shows that this thing wasn't thought through properly. All I can assume, I was talking to some friends and they were joking and saying, the politicians hear about the big increase and they get frightened. They couldn't think of anything else. We want the money. If I can give myself a big raise, I'm going to. That's human nature. But they didn't think through the repercussions. The prime minister, first of all, they must have realized how to come across and how 200% would come across. 100%, I think people would have quarreled, but they would have accepted that, yes, these guys are underpaid. They need an increase. It's years they haven't gotten anything. But the 200% has shocked people. And personally, the government, if I was in the government, the prime minister, I would call the cabinet together, gentlemen, clearly we have damaged ourselves here. We have done great harm to our public image, and elections are coming up next year, which we want to win back. I tell you what, we're going to have to roll back, only give ourselves 100%. Then we can say in 3 years, we give ourselves 50% if we perform. That's what I would do. I think right now the government, the JLP, has been hurt by this. The prime minister, the finance minister, they need to do something to calm the seas, to lower the outrage. And I think the most logical thing to do is follow the theory. The theory is right. You need an increase, but not so much right now. That's a logical thing to do, in my view.
So we have a comment. We have several comments, by the way, but I want to take this particular one from Forever Holding Dodge, who says they should have put incentives in place instead and force them to earn their increase in pay. So this is the same argument that's been put for the public sector, where there's always been this thing said, well, we need to have performance-based pay for public sector workers. Dennis, what about performance-based pay for politicians?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think, however, that there's a certain base that they need. I personally don't have a problem with the level that they're at, and you can give them an incentive on top of that, because as I said, if they can get us to 27,000 GDP per capita, no one is going to argue with it. The problem is the execution, the communication. I think that something like this should have been signaled in a conversation to the public weeks ago in Parliament. We should have started this conversation, because we can't, as Kevin said, we can't hold people fully accountable who has power, right? When we're paying them that. I mean, I go back to not even the politicians, the police. They're poorly paid.
Exactly.
I've always said we need to pay them more, right? So that conversation is Sam. I agree with the comments about the retroactive. You know, I would say we should not pay the retroactive, because that is based on the performance in the past, which has not been good, because people have been suffering from living conditions, right? The environment we live in and everything. So I wouldn't say, you know, we shouldn't pay the current crop. What we should do is set this, we should give them the money, and we should set the standard now and say, listen, okay, fine. You said that the problem is money. This is what I want. I want in 3 years' time, all Jamaicans to get to a GDP per capita of at least $15,000.
Is that realistic?
Yeah, that is. That's fantastic.
Triple GDP in 3 years? That's realistic.
I don't know that's it. I was setting a target. You know, we need to set targets like that to move people up.
Well, remember when I did 5 and 4 and we never come nowhere close?
Yeah. So that is why we should be retroactive.
The target would be higher than the Latin American average.
Yeah.
If you can beat that, you get something. If you're below, you're deduct from you. But a reasonable target. But that's reasonable. You know, let's remember one thing, you know, the politicians have limited power. And I hear people talking about they're not accountable. That's garbage. They're some of the most accountable people in the country, because every 5 years, if people don't like them, you boot them out. There are a lot of other people in other spheres who they're there forever. They for example, I hear these so-called civil society groups knocking the politicians. They're not accountable, this and that. Some of them are been in the person in charge for 10, 15 years, and nobody knows what they do, can't get rid of them. And then they say politicians are not accountable. They are quite accountable. But the reality is that give them realistic targets. And this is the thing I don't understand. Why did Andrew Holness come with these things about the last night after the increase had been given? Where's the logic? Would you come with them before the increase is given? So as I said, I don't know what the thinking was, but it is very, very poorly thought through. It shows some kind of disconnect with the government in terms of how they view the public and their view of the public. They couldn't.
I think they didn't know because they feel like they have enough time before the next election for this to blow over. I don't know that this one is going to blow over. So
I heard one analysis. I heard one interesting analysis of someone. They said Andrew thinking in his head. And I said, what did he mean? He said he has a vision of Jamaica 10 years down the road, right? And he's thinking that vision is here, like Singapore-like. So he's measuring things of that in his head, that if the pay and all that, we're going to get there. But you have to deal with what is Jamaica now? Where are we now? You know? And
I say achieve the results first and then get the bonus. You can't get the bonus before you achieve the things.
Well, exactly.
So both of you are saying, okay, give them the bonus, give them this huge increase in pay, but then attach that to some things that they need to accomplish. But I
well, like I said, the pay was too. You could have done both
first and then triple your pay. And then you can say,
look at that track record.
Look what we did for Jamaica, and then triple your pay.
Well, you could have, what I said, bring it up to a reasonable standard, 100%, and then you have the bonus for the 3 years if you're moving ahead. That would have been logical, a two-step approach. Bring up, because we know they're underpaid, bring it up, and then say, okay, guys, if you perform, here's more down the road. Yeah, so I agree.
Here's the next point as well. So Forever Holding is making some really good points tonight. So he or she says CEOs get fired if they don't perform, and they only make 200K USD if it's a big company with profits. So that's a good point. We don't have any mechanism to recall our politicians if they are underperforming.
Would be boot them every 5 years. And by the way, the
No,
200K,
that's not
let me
enough.
clarify for your listeners, 200K for a CEO in Jamaica is low for a big company. Dennis, you want to give us some figures about how much the people made. You know more about this than me, but I know for a fact,
Yeah,
200K for a CEO for a big company, that is
yeah,
low.
yeah,
Give us
200,000,
Dennis.
200,000 for a CEO for a large company is low. I mean, they
How much
make,
a big CEO make in Jamaica? More or less. You're an accountant, so
yeah.
you've seen some
I
numbers.
think they would make maybe about $300,000-400,000 on average, when you look at
US.
it. Yeah, yeah, per year. And a lot of that has to do with performance, right? But 5 years, I think I agree with Kevin. It's a reasonable time. Of course, you can have some performance indicators before, right? But what we need to do is ensure they set them, set the targets and let us see what you're coming with, right? And this is where the conversation needs to go now, right? The saving grace for the government is that the signals coming from the opposition has been like flashing lights because they've given a lot of mixed signals in terms of their response to this. Not very consistent, and that I think is a saving grace. But the truth is that the
You
execution
mean
of
the
this
saving
was
the saving grace for the current administration?
yes, yes, yes,
That the
yes.
opposition has been so flip-floppy on the issue.
Yeah, all over the place, but the execution was very poor. But I think my view is that you pay them, right, and then you say to them, "We pay you now, right? Give us good neighborhoods to live in, give us a crime-free environment, give us good order on the roads, so that we can live peacefully. We can live comfortably. That is what we want, and increase our GDP per capita. So I'm not arguing about the money that they're getting now, but I'm saying let us set up some methods by which we're going to track this, right, and ensure that we get the delivery and we find some way. I agree there's accountability even within the 5 years, because the media in this country, we can use public opinion to get certain things done. The problem is that many Jamaicans don't do it, right? But when we are ready to use public opinion, and I think this is going to push people more and more to do it now, we can do that and get some accountability.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. We have a lot of comments. I want to read some of our comments before we go to the next segment. But thank you guys for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Thanks for having us.